Deontay Wilder says that Tyson Fury would be a piece of cake for him in a rematch. I'm going to quote Deontay Wilder directly here. He says, "The rematch with Fury will be a piece of cake for me. At this point in my life and my career, I have the world's attention. I am on the rise. I don't know about these other heavyweights. It seems like everybody else is standing still, but Deontay Wilder is doing this. It's amazing how the tables have turned. I wanted to end that fight with Fury with a devastating knockout, something that I always do. I got too excited. Everything he did was slow to me. The man had some kind of gypsy magic on me. That's for sure. It was very easy the way I saw it in my head. The second time around, it would be a piece of cake. Fury and his people know that. That's why they didn't take the rematch. I gave Fury a concussion that night. He don't even know how he got on the ground. And when a man don't know how he got on the ground or got up, he's in a bad place. How can a man win after being put on his ass twice? I have never seen a challenger beat the champion having been put on his ass twice. The referee helped him out big time. If he beat me so dramatically, if he outpointed me so much, then why not a rematch? Surely it will be easy for him, the way he's talking. But that's not the case." So those are the words of the bronze bomber, Deontay Wilder. Now, obviously, he demonstrates his unbelievable delusion where he's talking about he doesn't know what these other heavyweights are doing right now. They're standing still, but he's in whatever position he thinks he's in. Yeah, those other heavyweights, Anthony Joshua is set to receive a career high $32 million for his fight against Jarrell Miller on June 1st. That's what he's doing. So if you want to call that standing still, I don't know what it is that are you making $32 million against Dominic Brazil? This guy's delusion is incredible. And as for Tyson Fury, he just signed a deal with ESPN, reportedly worth an estimated $100 million. So yeah, I've got no idea what he's talking about there. But be that as it may, as far as his performance against Tyson Fury in the first fight, I'd like to direct your attention to an interview right here with David Haye. And this is on the Joe YouTube channel. And they've got a TKO, they call it TKO boxing podcast. This is an excellent episode. I highly recommend it to everybody. David Haye, a very, very interesting guest. He goes into depth about many things in the world of boxing, including his career, including his style, etc. But he also talks about Deontay Wilder. And he obviously had Deontay Wilder in as a sparring partner a couple of times when he was still an active fighter. And he said that watching the Wilder-Fury first fight, he has never seen Deontay Wilder fight that way before. As in, he thought that Wilder wanted to knock Fury out so badly that he was loading up on punches all the time, that he wasn't really using his jab enough, that he was just basically neglecting the fundamentals. Now, most people are going to say, well, he always neglects the fundamentals. He's never been a technically sound fighter. But he hasn't always been as hot-headed in the early rounds as he was against Tyson Fury. Every opportunity he got, he was slinging these huge, big punches, and Tyson Fury was able to get out of the way. And as said in my post-fight interview for that fight, it took a lot of energy out of Deontay Wilder throwing those big swings. And we saw something which we haven't seen before, which is Deontay Wilder dog-tired late on in that fight. Normally, he's got very good stamina, whereas against Tyson Fury, he had expended so much energy through, the first 2/3 of the fight with all these big swings that he had very little left in the final third. So David Haye talks about that. And David Haye talks about how Deontay Wilder actually has one of the best jabs he's ever encountered in the heavyweight division when he uses it. And that Deontay, as I've always said, and many other people have said, Deontay only tends to get wild once he's got you hurt. But against Tyson Fury, he was wild from the opening bell. Again, because, and also David Haye mentions the fact that he didn't respect Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder didn't. Because when he went in there against, for example, Luis Ortiz, he was a little wary of him because he had this reputation as the boogeyman and he could punch, etc. But with Tyson Fury, he was in there with a guy who he thought was a dead man walking because he'd been out the ring a long time and come back against a couple of puddings. He didn't really think that Fury had much that he needed to fear. So he went in there and fought with reckless abandon. And in a rematch, David Haye believes that Deontay Wilder would be a lot better, that he would, concentrate on his jab more, and that he would trust his own skills. And this is something I've talked about as well if a rematch happens. Deontay Wilder, when he was jabbing with Fury, he was actually doing well. He was landing nice jabs. Go and watch the fight. Forget about Gypsy King and all this nonsense. Go watch the fight. Turn the commentary off. Just watch it round by round. And for one, you'll realize that Tyson Fury's missing quite a lot himself. A lot of his punches are blocked and missing. And two, you'll realize that Deontay Wilder's actually landing some nice punches in there, particularly the jab. But because he's not jumping up and down at the end of every round and showboating all the time, it kind of flies under the radar, okay? And, I don't want to get into a whole debate about whether the draw was fair. Again, the point I'm making is Deontay Wilder had a lot more success in that fight with conventional punches than people realize if you go and watch it again. And in a rematch, if Deontay can keep his head, calm it down, just box his way, through that fight, show more patience like he has shown in some fights, like against Luis Ortiz, that will serve him better than just going in there winging shots and desperate to knock Tyson Fury out, thinking in his head, all I need to do is crack this guy once in the chin and the fight's over. It's one of the oldest adages in boxing. Whenever you go looking for the knockout usually doesn't come. The knockout will come in the general flow of action when you're not really looking for the knockout. When you're just staying relaxed and loose, letting your punches flow, just boxing, the opportunity will come. And when it comes, then you can knock the guy out. But don't go try to force the knockout. And that's what Deontay Wilder was doing in the Tyson Fury fight. He was trying to force the knockout. So I am definitely not going to say that Deontay Wilder will find it easy in the Fury rematch. It's going to be a piece of cake. I'm definitely not going to say that. I think it's going to be a competitive fight second time around, if they fight second time around. As far as him talking about Fury not wanting the rematch, I think it's more to do with, I could be wrong here, but I think it's more to do with Fury's people than Fury himself. I could be wrong. I don't know what's in Fury's head, but I suspect it's more to do with, Bob Arum, Top Rank, ESPN. I think they're the guys who want to delay the Deontay Wilder rematch and not have it right away. And that's another thing that David Haye talked about. David Haye, in this TKO podcast, he talked about how when a fighter is making multi-millions per fight, he's feeding a lot of people. And those people do not want the fighter. In many cases, those people in the fighter's team, they don't want the fighter going into a 50-50 fight. Because they know if their fighter loses that 50-50 fight, the gravy train could come to a halt. It could be all over. So they would prefer that the fighter who they work for continues fighting in 80-20 fights or 70-30 fights. I'm talking about, percentage odds in terms of who's going to win. They'd prefer that happen because they want their money to continue. You see, what you have to understand is that a lot of managers, trainers, promoters, advisors, etc., most of them don't have cash cows who can generate multi-millions per fight. And fighters like that, for most managers and promoters, etc., only come along once in a blue moon. So when one of them comes along, they want to milk him and make the most out of him as possible. So, and same goes for networks, right? So when it comes to Tyson Fury and why he turned down the Deontay Wilder rematch, that's what I think probably went on. Is ESPN, Bob Arum, etc. thought to themselves, it's too dangerous to put him in with, Wilder right now. We saw him nearly get knocked out by Wilder in the 12th. I know he's going to be in better shape next time around, but hey, let's build Tyson Fury up. And then when we do risk him against Wilder or Joshua down the line, we're all going to see a massive return from it, regardless if he wins or loses. So, and maybe Tyson Fury, because Tyson Fury is very smart. Very, very smart. I've always said this. Maybe he sees the logic to that himself. Maybe Tyson Fury doesn't really care about fighting Wilder in the immediate future. At the end of the day, he's the one who went and did that ESPN deal. That ESPN deal wasn't forced upon him. He knew the terms of the deal. I'm pretty sure that Tyson Fury knew the direction ESPN wanted to go in before he put his pen to paper. I'm sure he knew. So maybe Tyson Fury really didn't care about the Wilder rematch either. And it was more about money for him. But be that as it may, that's my take on a rematch. I think that Deontay Wilder could have a lot more success throwing conventional punches against Tyson Fury and should allow the knockout to come if it comes. Allow it to come. Don't force it. If you feel like you're behind on the cards and you do need to start winging some punches and going for broke, make sure that happens in the final third of the fight. And make sure that when it does happen, you got plenty of gas left in the tank, which means in the first 2/3 of the fight, don't waste too many punches. Don't get it twisted. Throw when you have an opportunity to throw. Okay, when you have an opportunity to land something, throw as hard as you want. But don't just come in winging big shots and, every time Tyson Fury, you catch him in the corner, you're winging all these big punches and he's making you miss. And then the next time you get him in the corner, you're doing the same thing, wasting all this energy. Don't do that. Rely on your fundamentals. And I know Frank Bruno, for example, is somebody who has much better fundamentals than Deontay Wilder. But Frank Bruno, when he fought Lennox Lewis, trust me on this, very few people felt like Frank Bruno could outbox Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis was being compared, at least by his trainer Pepe Correa, to Muhammad Ali, the reincarnation of Ali. All right, the second coming. That's what Pepe Correa was saying he was. And a lot of people bought into that. I mean, Lewis was obviously a lot more athletic than Frank Bruno. He was faster. He was lighter on his feet. He was taller. I think the reach was about the same. Lewis maybe a slightly longer reach. But not many people felt like Frank Bruno would outbox Lennox Lewis. But that's exactly what Frank Bruno did. Frank Bruno outboxed Lennox Lewis for like at least 4 or 5 rounds in that fight. And he did it by just sticking to the basic fundamentals. Strong jab, straight shots. Don't get too wild. Don't try anything overly ambitious. Just stay within your envelope and keep it simple. Yeah, keep your arms up, your hands up, defense tight. Don't get caught with anything silly. And Frank Bruno had an enormous amount of... eventually he lost, obviously. He got stopped in the 7th. But the point is, keeping his fundamentals together allowed him to outbox a guy who is far more athletically gifted, who had a much better amateur career. Lennox Lewis, an Olympic gold medalist, and many other amateur titles and what have you as well. And obviously had become a world champion as a pro, something Frank Bruno had yet to achieve at that point. So Lewis on paper had the pedigree. Lewis on paper was just the more accomplished fighter, the more athletic fighter, the taller. He had everything on his side. He was younger as well, but yet Frank Bruno outboxed him, So with Deontay Wilder going into the Fury rematch, same thing. Stick with the jab, don't get wild, and you'll be surprised how much success he could have just sticking to the basics. I think people will be surprised by that, because I always said that when Deontay Wilder fights Tyson Fury, it will not be like the Klitschko fight, because a lot of the Fury fans were saying, it's going to be just like the Klitschko fight. You watch. No, it wasn't like the Klitschko fight. The Klitschko fight, there was a clear winner. The Klitschko fight, Tyson Fury never got hit anywhere near as hard as he did against Deontay Wilder. And of course, in the Klitschko fight, Klitschko didn't let his hands go the way Wilder let his hands go. Different mentality. I always said this. When Wilder fights Fury, he's not just going to stand there like a potted plant, letting Fury move around and jab. No, Wilder's going to let his hands go when he gets into position. Now, he let his hands go a bit too much, right, with missing the shots in the first 2/3 of the fight. But nonetheless, it shows you the mentality is different with Deontay Wilder when he fought Fury. I know he fought a much lesser version of Fury than Klitschko fought. That does have to be said. But even still, his mentality was a lot more aggressive and a lot more get up and get it than Vladimir Klitschko's mentality, who was always a more cautious thinker anyway, always had a more cautious mindset than someone like a Deontay Wilder, who's much more impulsive than a Vladimir Klitschko, So anyway, those are my thoughts on Deontay Wilder talking about Tyson Fury will be a piece of cake in a rematch. I doubt it. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight, just like the first one was. But I do think Deontay Wilder can do better. And it might even be a case where it ends up a very close decision either way or a draw, but next time maybe without the controversy. Because, again, I think Deontay probably will. I mean, I know he's not the brightest guy, but I think he probably will learn from his mistakes first time around and not be so wild early. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.